The invitation felt less like a celebration and more like a summons. It arrived in a velvet and gold box that smelled faintly of my sister Serena's perfume, a scent that always managed to make me feel small. Inside, nestled on silk, the card detailed a lavish wedding she was planning, but it was a handwritten note on the back, in Serena's perfect looping cursive, that really set the stage for what was about to happen. "Ilara, darling," it read, "so thrilled you can make it. Just a little tip. Please don't feel like you have to buy something new. Something simple from your closet will be just fine. We just want you there, not for you to upstage the bride. See you in the back row. All my love, S." The words were a masterpiece of passive aggression, a dagger wrapped in velvet. Don't upstage the bride. As if I could. As if my entire existence hadn't been a quiet shadow next to her blinding sun. So I chose a dress. A simple, pale blue sheath, the color of a winter sky. It was elegant in its own way, but in Serena's world of couture and extravagance, it was a whisper. It made me invisible. Now, standing at the edge of the grand ballroom, with a string quartet echoing off marble floors and the sight of 1,000 peonies threatening to swallow me whole, I clutch my simple purse and take a deep breath. My sister warned me not to upstage her. She had no idea my simple dress was about to unravel a secret that would throw her perfect world into chaos. My trip to the wedding was a perfect picture of our two different worlds. I took the 2-hour train from my quiet, book-filled apartment in the city, an apartment my family called my little studio project, like it was a hobby instead of my home. As the train rattled past sleepy suburbs, I lost myself in a dense book on emerging market algorithms. The crisp pages a comforting reality against the fantasy of Serena's wedding. Serena and I are sisters, but we're made of different stuff. She's fire and air, bright, beautiful, always taking up all the space in a room. I'm earth and water, quiet, steady, and almost always underestimated. Our mother used to say Serena got the beauty, and I got the brains, a line she always delivered like it was a cosmic joke at my expense. "What's a girl to do with all those books?" she'd sigh. "When she could have a rich husband?" The wedding was at a sprawling country estate that looked like it had been pulled from a period drama. It was a place of impossible grandeur, manicured lawns, sparkling fountains, and a staff that moved with the silent efficiency of people paid very well to be invisible. When I stepped out of the taxi, the valet gave my simple dress and single suitcase a dismissive look before turning to the glossy black sedan that pulled up behind me. I didn't mind. I was used to being overlooked. It was my superpower. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of money, a mix of expensive perfume, champagne, and the egos of 300 of the city's wealthiest people. My mother, Diana, spotted me from across the foyer. She was a vision in champagne silk, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Ilara, you made it," she said, air kissing the space next to my cheeks, careful not to smudge her lipstick. Her eyes flickered down my dress, and I saw a muscle in her jaw tighten. "Oh, that's a very practical choice, dear." "Hello, Mother. You look beautiful," I said, keeping my voice even. "Thank you, darling." Serena is in the bridal suite, but she's just swamped, utterly swamped. You understand. The unspoken message was clear. Don't bother her. Your father is around here somewhere, schmoozing. You know him. She patted my arm, a gesture that felt more like a dismissal than an embrace. "The seating chart is over there. You're at table 23, I think. Go on, find your seat." Mingle? But she didn't want me to mingle. She wanted me to disappear. Table 23, I soon discovered, was in the furthest corner of the ballroom, wedged between the service entrance and a large, potted fern that blocked the view of the head table. It was social Siberia. The other people at the table were a collection of distant relatives and forgotten business contacts, the island of misfit toys. We all knew exactly why we were there. We were the obligations, the people you had to invite, but hoped wouldn't show up. From my seat, I had a perfect, if distant, view of the show. I watched my father, a man who measured his worth in handshakes and stock prices, laugh too loudly with the groom's father. I watched my mother float through the crowd, her smile as bright and hard as a diamond. And then the ceremony began. Serena was breathtaking. Her dress, a cloud of imported lace and hand-sewn pearls, was rumored to have cost more than my annual salary. She glided down the aisle on our father's arm, the picture of bridal ecstasy. The groom, a handsome and bland man from an even wealthier family, looked at her like she was a goddess. During the ceremony, I found myself watching the mechanics of the event instead of the couple. I noticed a slight wobble in the towering floral arrangement and instinctively calculated the physics of its potential collapse. I saw a young waitress nearly trip on the aisle runner and felt a pang of sympathy. While everyone else was lost in the romance, I was quietly debugging the system. It's what I do. It's who I am. After the vows, the reception began. The band started playing, the champagne flowed, and the whisper started. I could feel them, even when I couldn't hear the words. Glances from women in jewel-toned dresses, a hushed comment from a cousin, followed by a sympathetic, pitying look in my direction. Is that Serena's sister? The quiet one, the academic. The word was said like it was a diagnosis. I can't believe she wore that. It's like she's not even trying. Well, not everyone is blessed with Serenas. Everything. I focus on the tiny slice of wedding cake on my plate. It fascinated me how my family equated appearance with worth. They lived in a world of surfaces, of polished exteriors and curated images. They couldn't imagine a life lived in the depths, in the unseen world of ideas and strategy. They looked at my plain dress and saw a failure. They couldn't see the woman who had built an empire on being invisible. They just saw a simple blue dress, not the armor it had become. The first direct assault came about an hour into the reception. Serena, holding a glass of champagne, made her way through the tables like a radiant queen visiting her subjects, with my mother trailing behind her. They stopped at table 23, and an uncomfortable silence fell over our small group of outcasts. "Ilara," Serena began, her voice dripping with sickly sweetness. "I'm so glad you could see this from all the way back here. Isn't it just a fairy tale? It's a beautiful wedding, Serena." "Congratulations," I said, and I meant it. Her eyes, the same shade of blue as mine but colder, raked over my dress. "I see you took my advice." Very understated. The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. My mother chimed in, using the tone of a parent discussing a problem child. "We were just saying, Ilara, it's such a shame you don't make more of an effort. You have such potential. All that time you spend with your computers. What is it you do again?" "Something with tech?" "I'm an investor, Mother," I said, my voice low and steady. It was the simple title I used. It was easier than explaining the complicated reality of my work. Serena laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "An investor? It all sounds so dreadfully boring. Numbers and charts. Don't you ever want more? A life like this." She gestured around the opulent ballroom. "A husband, a beautiful home. Real success." The condescension was suffocating. To them, my life was a failure because it wasn't shiny and on display. My success wasn't measured in carats or square footage, but in algorithms and market predictions, a language they had no interest in learning. "I'm happy with my life. Serena," I said. "Are you, though?" She pushed, leaning in. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a little sad, sitting all alone in the back, in that sad little dress. "It's embarrassing, Ilara. Not just for you, but for the family." Each word was a carefully aimed dart. I felt the familiar sting, the heat rising in my cheeks. This was their game, one I had never learned how to play. They built themselves up by tearing me down, a toxic family dynamic that had defined my life. I looked from my sister's triumphant smirk to my mother's disappointed gaze and felt a profound loneliness. I just sat there and took it, because that's what I'd always done. Have you ever felt completely underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most, judged for being different or for choosing your own path? If you have, you know how isolating that feels. It's a pain that cuts deep. If this story is hitting home for you, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. Your support reminds us all that stories of quiet strength deserve to be told. Just as I was looking for an escape, a deep, calm voice cut through the tension. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe you're in my seat. We all turned. Standing there was a man who seemed carved from a different reality than the rest of the wedding guests. He was tall, with dark hair and eyes that held a startling intelligence. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, but with an ease that suggested he'd be just as comfortable in a t-shirt and jeans. With a jolt, I realized he was the best man, Liam Sterling. I'd seen him during the ceremony. Serena's entire demeanor shifted. Her dismissive smirk melted into a dazzling smile. "Liam, what are you doing back here? Your seat is at the head table, of course." But Liam's gaze wasn't on Serena. It was on me, and there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Not pity, but recognition. For the first time all night, I felt seen. "My apologies," Liam said, his voice as smooth as aged whiskey. "I just came to speak with an old colleague. I didn't realize it would cause a scene." He gestured toward me. "Ilara, it's been a while." A stunned silence fell over the table. My mother and sister stared, their mouths slightly open. I was just as confused. I'd never met this man in my life. Or had I? I searched his face, my mind racing. And then it clicked. It wasn't Party. It was 3 years ago. A high-level, anonymous tech summit in Zurich. A gathering of the world's most influential and reclusive figures in venture capital. We hadn't spoken, but I had been there on a panel about predictive analytics and fintech, using a pseudonym to protect my privacy. He must have been in the audience. Liam seemed to read my mind. He gave a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. "The keynote you gave on quantum encryption models. It was revolutionary. I've been following your work ever since." My sister scoffed, recovering her composure. "Her work? Liam, darling, she just plays with computers. Ilara isn't in your world." Liam's smile was polite, but his eyes were steel. "On the contrary," he said, his gaze fixed on Serena. "Ilara is very much in my world. In fact, in many ways, she is the world I work in." He turned his full attention back to me, the warmth returning to his eyes. "I was hoping I could steal you away for a moment. There's a clean energy project I'm backing, and your investment portfolio is legendary for its foresight. I'd love to get your opinion." He was offering me an escape, a life raft in a sea of family toxicity. I looked at my sister's face, now a mask of pure, unadulterated confusion. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. Yes," I said, finding my voice. "Of course." Liam offered me his hand. As my fingers touched his, a strange sense of calm washed over me. He helped me to my feet, his touch firm and reassuring. Without another glance at my stunned family, he led me away from table 23, away from the whispers and judgment, and out onto a stone terrace overlooking the vast, darkening gardens. The cool night air was a relief. For a few moments, we stood in silence, listening to the distant music. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. "You didn't have to do that." He turned to me, leaning against the stone balustrade. The moonlight caught the silver in his cufflinks. "Yes, I did," he said simply. "I've been watching you all night. The way they treat you. It's appalling." "You get used to it," I said with a small, tired shrug. "No one should ever have to get used to that," he replied firmly. "And I wasn't lying, by the way. I was at that summit in Zurich. You were brilliant. You presented under the name E. Martinez. I believe." I nodded, surprised he remembered the alias. "It's for privacy. My family, they wouldn't understand." "They don't deserve to," he said, and the conviction in his voice was a balm on a wound I hadn't realized was so deep. "They see this," he gestured to my dress, "and they see weakness. They have no idea that your mind is one of the most powerful engines in the global market. They see a woman in a plain dress, not the anonymous venture capitalist who has quietly shaped the future of half a dozen industries." We talked for what felt like hours. He told me about his own tech company, a startup he'd built from the ground up. I found myself opening up in a way I never had before, discussing my investment strategies, my belief in sustainable tech, and the quiet satisfaction I got from building things that mattered, far from the public eye. He listened, truly listened, with an intensity and respect that was utterly foreign to me. He didn't just hear my words. He understood the architecture of my thoughts. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was speaking a foreign language. I had found someone who got it. There was an undeniable spark between us, a connection that went far beyond professional respect. It was a meeting of minds. Your sister, he said, his tone shifting slightly. She has no idea, does she? About any of it. None. I confirmed. To them, I'm just poor Alara, the bookish spinster who missed out on life. Liam looked out at the glittering lights of the reception. A thoughtful, almost calculating, look crossed his face. You know, he said slowly, the groom, my friend David, his business has been struggling. He was lucky to land a major investor a few months back. Someone who came in, restructured his debt, and saved his company from collapse. That investment is the only reason this wedding is happening on this scale. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. The investor insisted on complete anonymity, dealt only through a holding company called Yem Holdings. He turned to look at me, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Any relation to E. Martinez? My heart skipped a beat. David's company. I'd seen the potential in his renewable energy tech, buried under a mountain of poor financial management. It was a classic case for me, a diamond in the rough. I had acquired the debt, streamlined the operations, and set on a path to profitability. I had saved my future brother-in-law's company. And no one knew. Sometimes, I said softly, the best investments are the ones no one else sees a value in. Liam's smile widened. I couldn't agree more. He looked back toward the ballroom, where the toast would be starting soon. I think it's time we went back inside, he said, his eyes glinting with a mischievous light. I have a speech to give, and I've just decided to add a new section. As we re-entered the ballroom, the air crackled with a new tension. My brief disappearance with a handsome best man hadn't gone unnoticed. I could feel the questioning stares, the renewed whispers. From the head table, Serena shot me a look of pure fury and confusion. I met her gaze calmly, a newfound strength solidifying inside me, courtesy of the man by my side. Liam didn't lead me back to the exile of table 23, but to an empty table near the front. He pulled out my chair with an elegance that drew even more attention before making his way to the stage. He started his toast conventionally enough, praising the bride, joking about his friendship with the groom, sharing light-hearted anecdotes. My family preened, soaking in the praise from such an important guest. But I want to talk about something more than just love tonight, Liam said, his tone shifting. The room grew quiet. I want to talk about partnership, about support, about the unseen forces that make moments like this possible. He looked at the groom. David, my friend, I know the last year has been tough for your company. There were moments we both thought it wouldn't survive. But then a miracle happened. My mother and sister leaned forward, enraptured. They loved stories of financial miracles. An investor came along, Liam continued, his voice resonating through the room. A silent partner. Someone with the foresight to see the value in what you were building when no one else did. Someone who didn't just write a check, but who provided the strategy to turn it all around. This wedding, this beautiful celebration, is happening tonight in large part because of the quiet genius of that one person. He paused, sweeping his gaze across the room, past my sister, past my parents, until his eyes landed directly on me. And I think it's time we all thank that person. The lead investor in the groom's company, the anonymous benefactor who saved it from the brink, the principal and sole owner of EM Holdings. He raised his glass. To Alara Martinez. The name dropped into the silent room like a stone in a still pond. For a moment, there was nothing, just a collective, stunned gasp. Then a fork clattered loudly against a plate. Serena froze, her champagne flute halfway to her lips. Her smile was gone, replaced by a slack-jawed look of utter disbelief. My mother's face went pale beneath her makeup, and my father just stared, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. The room erupted in murmurs. Heads turned, eyes wide with shock, all pointing at me. The quiet girl in the plain blue dress. Liam's voice cut through the noise. I'm surprised, Serena, that you didn't ask your own sister for help. Considering her venture capital firm is one of the most successful and discreet in the country. her personal net worth is. Well, let's just say she could have bought this entire estate as a wedding gift and not noticed the expense. That was it. The final blow. The chaos was absolute. The facade of my family's perfect world shattered. The toast ended, but no one applauded. They just stared at me, then at my family's horrified faces, then back to me. The story was clicking into place for everyone. The plain dress, the back row seat, the condescending remarks. It was all being recontextualized in the blinding light of this new reality. Before I could process it, my family descended on me. My mother arrived first, her face a frantic mess. "Ilara, darling," she gushed, grabbing my hands. "Is it true? Why didn't you ever tell us? We're so proud." Her words were a desperate, false torrent. My father was next, his face flushed. "My girl, my brilliant girl, I always knew you had it in you. Always said she was a smart one. Didn't I, Diana?" He tried to put an arm around my shoulder, but I subtly stepped away. Then came Serena. Her face was a storm of rage, humiliation, and dawning panic. Her fairy tale had become a nightmare, with her forgotten sister as the star. "Ilara," she whispered, her voice trembling. Why would you humiliate me like this? On my wedding day, humiliate her?" The irony was so thick, I could have choked on it. "I did nothing, Serena," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I came to your wedding. I wore a simple dress like you asked, and I sat where I was told. This," I gestured to the chaos, "has nothing to do with me. It's the consequence of your own actions." "But we're family," she stammered, the words sounding foreign on her lips. "You should have told me. You could have helped me." "Helped you?" I asked, a spark of fire igniting within me. "You didn't want my help. You didn't even want my presence. You wanted a prop, a quiet, shabby reminder how much better your life was. You got exactly what you asked for." I looked at their three desperate faces, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, not even triumph. Just a vast, empty space where years of hurt used to be. They hadn't loved me when I was nothing. Their sudden affection now was worthless. It was currency for transaction, not love. I turned to Liam, who was watching from my side. He met my gaze and gave a slight nod, a silent question. "Are you ready?" I nodded back. "Yes." With a composure that felt both new and completely natural, I addressed my family one last time. "Enjoy the rest of the wedding," I said, my voice clear and final. "It seems I've paid for it." And with that, I turned my back on them. On the gasps, on my mother's frantic pleading, on my sister's choked sob, I walked away from the life where I was a family's secret shame. Liam fell into step beside me, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. Together, we walked to the stunned crowd, a path parting before us as if by magic. We didn't look back. We walked out of the grand ballroom and into the cool, quiet freedom of the night. Standing by his car under a vast, star-filled sky, I took a deep breath of clean air. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. "So," Liam said, his eyes sparkling, "what happens now?" I looked at him, the man who had seen my worth when no one else had, who had handed me the key to my own cage. A genuine smile spread across my face. "Now," I said, feeling a sense of boundless possibility opening up before me, "we start our own story." Conclusion: true worth isn't about what you wear or where you sit. It's not about the approval of others. True worth is etched in your character, your integrity, and in the quiet work you do to build a life that's truly your own. My family was so blinded by the glare of status that they couldn't see the value standing right in front of them. They spent years trying to make me feel small, never realizing I was secretly building an empire in the shadows. That night wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. It was a moment I stopped letting my family write my story and finally picked up the pen myself. With Liam by my side, I left that life of quiet apologies behind and stepped into a future where I would never be underestimated again. Because I finally understood that the most powerful people aren't the ones who make the most noise. They're the ones whose actions change the world, even if no one knows their name. Call to action. What would you have done in my situation? How would you have reacted to your family after a reveal like that? Share your thoughts in the comment below. We read every single one, and your stories inspire us. If you were moved by this story of vindication and finding your power, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us that the underdog can and does win. We'll see you in the next one.